You dedicate this book to Thomas C. Schelling.
I do.
Mentor, colleague, and friend whose example I strive to emulate. Who is he?
Tom Schelling is an economist. He was for many years a professor of economics at Harvard. He is one of the fathers of game theory and strategic analysis in the social sciences. His book in 1960 called The Strategy of Conflict was a classic and had a very broad impact and is still read. And he was my colleague at Harvard when I came there in 1982 as a young professor. He was at the Kennedy School of Government, and eventually I moved over to the Kennedy School's faculty after a couple of years at Harvard, and his office was next to mine. We worked closely together. We taught a course at the Kennedy School during the 1980s called Public Policy in Divided Societies, which experience of teaching with him had a big impact on me. And beyond that, we became good friends, and he was a sort of father figure for me in many ways. He's celebrated his 80th birthday recently.
Are any of these folks that you've known over your life that you are not friends with now because of political views, you want them back? Who would they be? Who are people you don't see anymore?
Oh, there are plenty. I wouldn't want to name names. That seems, you know, unfair. But there are plenty of people who I don't see, because we don't travel in the same circles. It's not as if I think there's necessarily some decision to not see, but I don't see whom I miss.
Are you in the end an example of where we, if we don't agree with one another, we don't socialize with them? If we don't have the same political views and we don't accept the other side, and that as you've seen yourself go from side to side in this situation, does it bode well for the future? I mean, you're just one person that's trying to move from one segment to the other.
As I said in response to a similar question earlier, I think this is tough stuff. I mean, what we're talking about here is not just ideas. It's also people's sense of trust and security and gratification in the personal relations that they have with others who are of like mind. And when I'm thinking now of my friendship with Justice Clarence Thomas, whom I've known for many years, back to the mid-1980s, and whom I visited in his chambers and whom I've had meals with and had, I'm not just name dropping here, I'm trying to make this point. I make the point that I'd like to think that my relationship with Clarence Thomas has been based over the years on something other than or more beyond the fact that he and I happen to agree on some things that a lot of people disagreed with us about. Certainly a lot of African Americans disagreed with us about. Now, my position on affirmative action has changed. I don't expect Justice Thomas's position on affirmative action to change, but I'd like to think that and I believe that it would be possible for us to nevertheless be friends, notwithstanding the fact that I'm now on the other side of that question.
Is there any reason why it's not possible? Have you talked to him?
No, and that's what I was getting to. While it may be possible in principle, it hasn't been happening in fact, and it hasn't happened, I think, because we don't travel in the same circles and because perhaps neither of us has made the effort in the condition of our disagreement to reach out and say, you know, let's have a drink anyway, what the heck.
Our guest has been Glenn C. Loury, professor at Boston University, and the book is The Anatomy of Racial Inequality.